You'll never see another Les Paul quite like this one. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. So this guitar right here is causing quite a storm over on some Facebook groups, and I'd imagine it's been shared on some forums and stuff too. But take a look at this thing. It's a Les Paul Custom Artisan outfit, but with a white finish. But it was built outside of the Les Paul Artisan range. If you're not familiar with this model, it ranged from 1976 until 1982. I mean, yes, you can find some in 75, and there was at least one other like Les Paul standard that was custom ordered with this fretboard style. But 76 to 82, that's that general range that these things actually existed in the maple neck era. And in this video, I talked about how they were going to actually reissue these in 2012, but unfortunately that one never made it out of the prototype stages. But you'll see, that one is white. And the first conclusion for a lot of people was to freak out that it was white, but there actually were legitimate white Les Paul Artisans in 1982. There was only about 10 of them made, and that is a guitar I am heavily looking for, but this one is not one of those because it does not have the black binding. And in my opinion, that is the one special feature that makes that white Les Paul Artisan a holy grail. So besides this one being made in 1988, what else is special about it? It's not a regular Les Paul Custom, it's a Custom Lite. Now if you want to learn all about the Custom Lites, just check out this video. The initial run of Custom Lites were done in the late 80s. But people started to find out about them again when they were reissued in 2013, and they kind of had various specs all the way until about 2016 before they just gave up. Gibson will still make light guitars like the Les Paul Classic Lite for dealer exclusive runs. Who knows if we'll see this come back in the future. But they're a Les Paul Custom on the front, they still have the binding, but the back, it's about the thickness of an SG and they get this comfort carve going on. Some people really dig this model, others not so much. I like them, but I'm not in love with them. But when this one showed up with Artisan specs, it's like, wow, that is really cool, a Les Paul Artisan Lite. So let's go ahead and check this thing out. First off, we can see the pickguard is missing. That is such a shame because I bet this would look so much better with that black pickguard thrown on there. They decided to channel the earlier Artisans with the 3 pickups. Now, unfortunately, the seller has not torn this guitar apart or at least shown photos on their listing or provided information in their description saying what pickups are in here. And that's a real shame because being 1988, it could be a whole bunch of stuff. If you're lucky and there's 3 Tim Shaw PAFs in there, you're in for a real treat. But 88 is pretty late for those. It's probably like the PU 490 type pickups. It could also be the Bill Lawrence, the originals, but judging by the size of the height adjustment screws, they're not likely those. Tarbacks were pretty well phased out by 85, 86, so it's very unlikely that they went with what was originally in a Les Paul Custom Lite. But unfortunately, I don't have a real answer. We can only speculate, and that's what I could figure out. The bridge looks like a traditional Nashville style one, so they didn't do anything crazy with an ABR1 bridge, but the TP6 tailpiece, that's a nice touch. That's also a Les Paul Artisan spec, as well as a few other high-end Les Pauls. And the controls here, this is also an area where it differs from a regular Les Paul Custom Lite. Those actually came stock with a factory mini toggle for a coil split. So it's kind of a shame that you don't have that, but at the same time, this is when Gibson started to toy around with like the push pots more. So maybe it does have coil splitting options that we just can't see because we don't have a control cavity photo. But that white finish is completely creamed out. It would have been sweet if they would have went for the black binding, but they likely didn't know about that 1982 run when this was likely custom ordered. But if it was custom ordered, they could have also done individual volumes for each and then a master tone. There's a lot of different ways to wire up a 3 pickup Les Paul. But you can definitely tell somebody played this quite a bit because, I mean, all the gold is worn off this area, completely off there, completely there. So whoever's guitar this was, they thoroughly enjoyed it. Moving on to the fretboard, it's the Hearts and Flowers inlay. Before the Les Paul Artisan, these came from banjos. And thankfully none of those inlays are missing, it's completely bound, you've got the fret nibs right there, and it is ebony. Moving on to the face of the headstock, this is where, as a collector, it kind of hurts my heart a little bit. So what's happening here, judging by what I can see in this one photo, is I think the inlays are actually starting to slightly pop out, and that's caused the finish to lift. It could also be a humidity moisture damage type thing. I mean, this type of stuff, it does happen, but that's going to be a real shame when that starts to pick and chip off, that's for sure. And sadly, the truss rod cover doesn't read Artisan. So this was strike one for me, but then we get to the back. So this looks right. right? I mean, you got Grover tuners, that's what they were using at this time. The serial number dates it to 1988-097, looks like 601. But here is where I started to question the authenticity of this Les Paul. There's no custom shop original decal. This is the era where if somebody did a freaky one-off custom order, it would have a decal. So it's very possible that somebody took a Les Paul Custom Lite and they had an Artisan and they found some Artisan parts on eBay. Maybe somebody just swapped the parts on a guitar that got broken. If this would have had a custom shop original decal somewhere on this, I would have been very interested in purchasing it for a full review and demo. But not having that kind of raises some red flags. I mean, ultimately, I think it's legit. I mean, don't take that story and what I say, meaning that this is a bad guitar. It's just a little bit strange and unusual, but not necessarily unheard of. But the final nail in the coffin for this one is if you look really closely, you can see lots of finish checking in this area. And then I did not even catch this until the seller sent me a message. Take a look at the finish on that neck. I don't like the way that that's aged. Now they're claiming that that's due to the guy's sweaty hands. He's always playing in the cowboy chord position. And yeah, white finishes, they do discolor like that. I mean, you can see right there where his sweaty body has changed the color of the finish right there. You can also see that phenomenon right here. It kind of turns that off grayish color. So it's entirely possible, but if I was going to make a serious offer on this guitar, I would need a lot more photos because it just creeps me out too much here and there's no good close-ups of that area. So if you're the seller of this guitar, add a few more photos of that area. That'll help clear up some confusion for people. But moving on to the back, there's no binding because they did this little comfort carve right here. But unfortunately, we have no inside shots of these control cavities. So yeah, that is a really cool find. I would have loved to have documented it, but take a look at our price tag. This was initially listed for $25,000 and no Norland era guitar. I mean, technically this is outside the Norland era, but it's like right on that line between where they didn't really make any major changes yet. But there's no 80s Gibson Les Paul that's worth that much, except for maybe one very special one. But it is for sale by Idle Wind Guitars in Savannah, Georgia. So seeing a price tag of $25,000 initially, I wanted to see what else this guy was selling, to see what their prices were, because maybe he was just confused. I mean, with a potential one-off guitar like that, you do ask for the moon and then come down to whatever a collector's willing to pay. But I was taking a look at his other stuff and then it hit me. Okay, this is the guy with the 79 Les Paul Standard. It's a fantastic one. I featured this in a separate WYRON, but his prices change all the time. This is not a $50,000 guitar. It's probably $10,000 at best, and that's even being generous. So that's when I got the idea that this guy he's just showboating it. He wants people to see it. He's not necessarily interested in selling. But then I saw he dropped the price. I think it was to like $20,000. So that made me think, okay, maybe he is serious about selling. But then a couple of days later after that, I actually got one of those direct offers that not everybody has access to sending on Reverb yet. And it was for 10 grand. So I was like, okay, he is willing to be reasonable here. If this thing was in mint condition, I could see it selling for as much as $15,000 because it is super special, but you would have to be able to verify the whole story of it being a custom ordered one-off first. But even in this state, I still think it's worth between $6,500 to about $8,500. So he's kind of within that range where if you wanted to collect it, you could. So I declined that $10,000 offer, but he also sent this message out to everybody who was watching the guitar. He said he had a strong offer on it, but he wanted to give everybody a chance. Feel free to counter his offer. So it's like, okay, he's an open invitation. I told him I might be interested at $5,000, but I would need a considerable amount of extra photos. You know, things like of that headstock break area, what kind of pickups are in here, you know, the control cavities. Maybe there's something special in there that would verify its custom ordered one-off status. But he told me he already had a $6,000 offer. So whether that offer is real or not, I don't know. I mean, it's very possible. But then he dropped the price to $10,000 after he wasn't getting anybody biting on all those offers. But then he raised it back up to $15,000. And then right before I made this video, he dropped it down to this $95, $95, $95 price. Likely trying to get a sale before Reverb finally raises their fees. Editing this video today, it's about 3 days later, he proceeded to drop his price all the way down to $6,000 and send everybody who was watching it another direct offer for $6,000. But there were no takers, so that means his $6,000 offer was just a bluff, or the guy ended up backing out. So nobody took it at $6,000. The lowest he had ever advertised this, I think, was like $5,900, and nobody was taking this. And then as of right now, when I'm finished editing this video, it's back up to $18,995. So this is the world's most indecisive seller, and he's committed a cardinal sin. When you're selling something that's a limited edition one-off, you have to be patient. Put it for a price and just hold tight, because there's nothing competing against you. It's a one-off model, but when you go all willy-nilly with the price, now nobody's interested in this guitar for more than $6,000. But maybe it's not his fault. Let's learn a little bit more about the history of this one. Perhaps it's an indecisive consignee. So he says, there's only one, Les Paul Artisan Lite with the white finish. But here's the big one, original owner since new. Now, I don't think he's claiming to be the original owner, but if the original owner still exists, maybe he has some paperwork from within Gibson. I saw a lot of people in those Facebook groups saying, oh, just send it into Gibson, they can verify it. Not necessarily. Their strength with having like documentation of their guitars that they built cuts off at 1989. So this one being a 1988, I mean, even if we look at our serial number here, it's a pretty early 88. So whether they would actually have documentation of this guitar, it's like right on that line. I mean, it's possible, but most likely not. They would not be able to verify the custom one-off status. But that's the key to this one. The original owner, if he has something that verifies it, that would be really cool. So it's a pretty interesting piece if somebody wants to add a potentially custom ordered one-off Les Paul Artisan Lite to their collection. Now, how much you want to pay for it, I'll leave that up to you and the seller, but I will put a channel supporting link in the description if you're interested in owning this one. The only question left, would you rock the Artisan Lite or not? Leave your answer down in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.